Hi, I'm Gayu. Do you ever want to see behind the curtain of tracks to understand exactly what makes them tick? Today we'll do that with the sublime Protection by Massive Attack. So join me as we look at the samples, the synths and the secrets that went into making this classic track. Okay, so just with some drum sounds. So I was quite lucky. Some tracks, there's no information on how they're done, but with this track, there is some. This track started with a sequence drum break, some hi-hats from a loop, and a James Brown guitar sample. I decided to slightly cheat and actually just sample the drums. Not the whole loop, the kick and the snare from this loop. I sliced them up, put them into a drum rack. We've got the kick, which is also like the bass, which is this big 808 sub, basically. And I actually originally put in one of my own, which sounds a little bit different, but you can tell that's probably what it is. Then we've got a few different snare sounds. This is my version. So although I've cheated a little bit, I have programmed it out so you can see we've got this snare sound, then this snare sound, and then there's this different snare sound and a little bit of a break, and we've also got the sub, like a shorter version of it. Then the next component is the hi-hats. This was a break. I couldn't find the break. I did have a fairly good look, so I just decided to sequence it myself. So if you listen to this part, sounds a bit rubbish on its own, but in the context, I think it sounds pretty good. And if you listen to the original, this is what theirs sounds like. You know, I think it's in the ballpark. And then, of course, we've got the James Brown break. So this is from the Payback. And so some of the shakers are in, and you can hear that in the actual track. Let's just have a little listen to a fuller break. So it sounds like this. I knew that break, but I never knew that that was where the track Protection came from. And actually, if we listen to this at its normal pitch, so it's just pitched down, it's just effectively slowed down 10 BPM. So the original pitch is this. So I did try and put that whole break in, but actually I'm pretty sure it's just the guitar bit. So that's what I did. I just chopped out the guitar bit and put it in like that. So next up, we've got kind of the foundation of the track, which is the keys. So it's a lovely melody, and it's kind of a 16-bar loop. Basically, we're going in between two chords. We're going in between B major to B minor, but it's a bit more complex than that, and a lot nicer than that. So if it was just doing that, it would be. It has the flavour of that because we have the D sharp and then the D natural, but the actual way it's played is. Which is lovely. So we've got a kind of inversion where we've got the D sharp at the top. We're not playing it here, we're playing it here. And then we've got the fifth, and then we've got this, which is, I think, the seventh. You can please correct me if I'm wrong, but it's beautiful, isn't it? It's like, so it's much nicer than a boring old B. It's got so much more flavour. And then they do a bit of. I really like that because the bass note, the B, stays, but these notes change. So we just have the B in the octave, but we have the E. So we don't actually have the D natural. So I'm not sure what that chord is. Please let me know if you know. I'm just going to give up on what chord that is. But then, so we just go back and forth between those two chords, and then we've got this lovely bit where the bass note walks down, and we don't actually change the chords really, but so we go from that to that, and then we've got the bass note goes down to the A, and then to the G. And again, I've got no idea what the theory is, and I suspect they probably didn't. They were just playing and it sounded good, although they may well have known it better than I know. That's basically the heart of the song, and it doesn't really vary apart from at the beginning bit. So we have 6 bars, but effectively this is like the end of the 16. So if we look at this as a 16 bar chunk like this is like just starting from here. But apart from that, then after that, it just kind of keeps fairly regular. But it's quite an interesting chord progression because, you know, I would often write one, I would like 4 bars and then 4 bars or 8 bars. But this is kind of like they do 10 bars and then we go down and down to 12. Then we have a little repeat and then down and down. So it's fairly unconventional, and I just think it sounds great, and it definitely keeps interest. And the sound, I've used a Wurlitzer, which is a nice electric keyboard. Yeah, Wurlitzer 140. I'm not sure that's what they used, but it sounds pretty close to me. A distinctive factor is it's got phase on it. So without the phase, it's a bit vanilla, and it doesn't quite sound like the track. But if we have the phaser, there we go. There's definitely a distinctive part of the song if we listen to the original. And maybe theirs is a bit nicer, of course. It has to be that way. The other thing, so I slightly stole the little fill. So it's got this lovely fill. Let's listen to the original. I wasn't going to get out some turntables, do some scratching, because it's got a little bit of a scratch there. So I cheated a little bit. I just took that chunk, but I added a little bit of automation to get the delay effect, because that's what happens in this one. You hear that ch, ch, ch. So this is what mine sounds like. Okay, so next we have the vocal coming in. Oh, it's an amazing vocal. I just think as a song, it's really beautiful, and the message is so beautiful. I think so many songs, they're not really about anything important or meaningful, but I find this track really meaningful, you know, about protecting other people, being there for other people, even if maybe you don't feel like you can. What I did to get my version, I actually used the Brian Eno mix. In the Brian Eno mix, it's quite an ambient mix, so there's a lot of vocal without much behind it, but you can actually hear some sounds. And I did try and remove the other sounds. Let's have a listen to the original. This girl I know needs some shelter. It's a beautiful reverb on it. Nice big reverb. And an amazing vocal performance. She's doing so much harm, doing so much damage. So there in the vocal, we do get this D natural. So that's what gives it this flavour of just basically going from major to minor. I think it's called a modulation. Beautiful, huh? I mean, just incredible. So that's the basic, what the melody is doing roughly. And then we've got the structure. We don't really have a verse chorus structure in that the chords aren't changing. They've got their changes within the 16 bars, but they don't change for the verse, but the vocal does. So let's have a listen to the verse. I stand in front of you and take the force of the blow. And then that lovely melody that sounds awful when I play it. When the chords change to the minor, it still works. So we get this lovely kind of tension. Let's have a listen. I stand in front of you and take the force of the blow. Protection. I'll stand in front of you. I'll take the force of the blow. Protection. So that note sounds so different. We've got the major. That's really working, isn't it? That's just working. Amazing, cracking vocal. So then really it's kind of an exercise in subtlety. Like we don't need a lot more to happen. So they just back it up with some nice stuff. So the next sound to come in is some nice strings. They come in here. They start to creep in, I think, here actually.
If you left it just the way you found it.
So I'm just using a D50, Roland D50 classic synth from the 80s really. I don't think I got bang on, but I think it's quite in the background, so it sounds close enough to me. So let's have a listen to my version.
I'll stand in front of you. I'll take the force of the blow.
We've got this chord. It's again, lovely chord, and it's kind of like we've got the B, the first and the third, and then we don't have the fifth, but we've got like this, I think it's a seventh, maybe it's a sharp seventh or something. And then again, we get this sense of going from major to minor, even though we don't have the D natural, we have the... And I don't know what chord that is either. So please tell me. Sounds great, and just subtly adding atmosphere to the track.
I'll stand in front of you. I'll take the force of the blow. Protection.
Some of these sounds are coming off the vocal I've used. This is from the ambient mix.
Protection.
What also comes in here is this 303 line. It's very much not your higher state of consciousness, hard floor kind of thing. It's quite subtle, and it's just one note. So it's just this. So it's not that easy to hear, but let's have a listen to the mix, the original, and try and listen out for it.
I'll stand in front of you and take the force of the blow.
Quite subtle. But then later on, they've automated the resonance and the filter.
Gotta
Like here.
be small. You look so small. Gotta be.
And actually, there's one bit that I didn't get around to doing. There's a second acid line. Do, 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 do.
She's a girl, you're a boy. Sometimes you look so small.
That's a really nice use of the 303, I thought. I really like how they recorded a nice long bit. So that's what I did. I recorded all this, and it started it off quite dry without any resonance. But then just... slowly changed it. By the way, if you want access to all the samples that I create personally for these tracks, have a look at my Patreon, and thanks to all my patrons. So just a few more things. We've also got a nice piano line that comes in. I was very lucky. By the way, there's a brilliant resource. If you love Massive Attack, there is a website that's in the description, and someone very kindly has actually scanned all the articles virtually, it seems like they ever did. So that's a great resource. And through the Future Music interview, I found out that they used a JD800. They even said what preset they use, LA piano. And it sounds kind of awful, if I'm honest. In the mix, I think it sounds great. And there's just this nice little kind of slow arpeggio.
Stand in front of the blow.
And you can hear that in the original.
Stand in front of you, take the force of the blow. Protection. Stand in front.
And then it changes with the keys. And here we've got that D natural. So this shift, major to minor shift, being reinforced.
Stand in front of you, take the force of the blow. Protection. She's a girl.
So again, we get something else coming in, this lovely triangle. I think it's a triangle. Try to recreate it. I think it's fairly similar.
You're a girl and I'm a boy. You're a girl and I'm a boy.
So you can hear how the vocal is not quite the same. I just use it to fill in. I'll just turn off the vocal for a sec. So yeah, we've got... So then we've got another JD piano just going dun, dun, dun. So you can hear it in the original. Quite quiet.
Sometimes you look so small, you need some shelter.
But then later on in the track, we hear it a bit more. If we listen to the original, yeah.
Stand in front of you and take the force of the blow. Protection. I stand in.
Basically, we've done it. That's the track Protection. It just winds down to a close. So we just look at the overall structure. We've just got this simple intro, then we kick in with the keys and the vocal. We've got this 16-bar loop that goes on through, then the strings come in here, the 303 comes in here. Kind of just building. Then we have the nice piano arpeggio, the triangle. We have a little bit here where things drop out. So let's listen to the original.
Sometimes you look
So we've got just the vocal. So it's nice because we've built all that stuff up and then we just cut it back a bit and have mainly just the vocal and the keys.
Now I can't change the way you feel, but I could put my arms around you.
There we have it, Protection by Massive Attack. Really hope you found that helpful. I've always found it fascinating to break down these tracks. I love this song and I have for many years. If you'd like to get access to the sounds, the samples, join my Patreon and you'll be able to get access to that. Apart from that, thanks very much for watching. See you next time.